That's all I know. Pierogi, I know pierogi because they're really good to eat. Kielbasa. But I was in Poland in '75, and I was asked by then Pope John Paul II's boss, because Pope John Paul was not Pope John Paul yet. He was still a cardinal in Krakow, Poland, in southern Poland, in the university city. And his superior said, would you bring a group of singers and orchestra, please, and encourage the church? And not only sing, he said, but preach and pray and bring our people closer to Jesus. I was all of 22 years old, and I felt supremely underqualified. And I quickly thought about my credentials, which were not very much. And I said, Lord, are you sure that you want me to do this? He said, yes. I said, you could have found somebody better. He said, I know that. You were not my first choice. Wow. That's a humbling thing right from the beginning. But it was so true. And I took those young singers and orchestra, and we never had less than 3,000 people every single night, because when the church is under persecution, the church is purified, and people will come out. During the war, all of our churches are always full. People are on their knees because they're desperate. I used to have a friend in Calcutta who said, I'm praying for persecution so my church attendance will go up. He's not all wrong. It's when we're desperate sometimes that we really need to press in to God. So these folks were pretty desperate. The economy was bad, communism was bad, people were in prison for their faith, and I was asked to come in and encourage them, which we did. In an 8-day period of time, I saw 1,800 people come to an altar and make commitments of their lives to Christ. And it was life-changing for me. I was already employed in Los Angeles. I'd grown up in Visalia, went to university, came back, lived in Los Angeles, and the Lord said, leave your job and step out in faith and challenge some young people to go with you. And I really didn't want to do that because I was doing just fine, thank you very much. But I felt like the Lord pressed upon my heart and said, I really have called you. So I prayed for 1 year. At the end of that year, I moved back from Los Angeles to good old Visalia, because you all know you can live more cheaply here, right? Yeah, it's getting worse, but still. At that time, the city was 30,000 people, and now we're 130,000. Came back, and I had only two things. I had the vision and the call, which was very profound, and I had a lot of money. Thank God. I had a ton of money. I had $150 to start a worldwide ministry. And if you're Polish, pardon me, my brother, you don't know that that's not enough. You just start. And so we did. From that start, I started sharing the vision. I don't know why anybody believed it. But young people came from all over America. And we went out, and it wasn't long before that team was doing 300 concerts a year. Then we started a second team. They were doing 300 concerts a year. Then a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. Eventually 7 teams. That means 7 buses. That means 7 sets of sound equipment and lights and a whole bunch of people. And Noah said it best, the more animals you put on the ark, the more mess there is to clean up. But on the other hand, you get a lot done. We were doing 1,500 concerts every single year all over the world. In every state in about 20 countries every year. It became the largest music ministry in the United States of America in terms of numbers of people being reached, numbers of presentations of the gospel. And it was a glorious time for about 10 years. And then everybody got old, except for me. And so we started over, and we're kind of in our second and third, I don't know what generation we're in right now, I'm really not counting. But one thing I will tell you is that one of the guys playing bass tonight was in the original group. He's an engineer for the state of Oregon, and he flew down here to be a part of Homecoming. Yeah, oh yeah. This year, we have 2 teams out, and between September and spring, we'll do weekends with our California team. But we have just started a brand new idea, a new vision, something new that will be bigger than anything we have done up to this point. Years ago, the Lord said, I want you to put 3,000 musicians every single year on the mission field. And the largest we ever got was 200. Yes, we were doing 1,500 services a year, but we only had 200 people involved. It's a long, far cry from 3,000. So I prayed and I said, Lord, how do we do that? And 30 years went by and I never could figure it out. And in the last 5, I got real fervent about it, real serious. I said, Lord, if you really mean that, you better show me, because time is marching on, and I sort of notice when I look in the mirror and I feel my back riding that bus for 75 days. Well, you get the picture. I said, you better tell me what to do. And just this year, it came. We are in the process of developing an army of 3,000 musicians. But they're not all young. Some of them are young at heart. We've opened the paradigm. You can be in Celebrants at 18, or you can be in Celebrants at 80, assuming you can walk. Or we can roll you up to the stage. Either way. Let me tell you why. Because we've been in 98 countries with this work. 98 countries, and everybody says, when are you coming back? And we don't have enough teams. So I met in June with the 4 founding fathers of contemporary Christian music. You might know their names, you might not. But I called a meeting of those 4 people at the Los Angeles International Airport, and I said, I got an idea I want to share with you. But I want to sit down and talk about the past, what happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and I want to talk about the now and the state of the church and church music, and I want to talk about the future and what's incumbent upon us for the future. And the gentleman who wrote all of the Billy Graham films, wrote all the music for that, did all the half-hour programs for Oral Roberts, was the music conductor for Nat King Cole and Peggy Lee and the Lucy Show and Bonanza and you name it in the secular world, and all the other stuff in the Christian world. He's 86 years old. He sat on my immediate left for 2 days and he never went to sleep once. At the end of that meeting, he stood up and he said, John, this is the most exciting idea I've heard in 20 years. I have 3,500 arrangements in my library. You can have all of them with no charge. If you can develop 3,000 musicians to share God's love on the mission field every single year, you got everything I got left. This gentleman is going on a 30-city tour with the greatest big band that's ever been assembled out of Los Angeles. How many watch Dancing with the Stars? A guy named Rick Baptist plays lead. Another friend of mine, Daryl Gardner, plays right along with him. Those guys are going. Every great player in LA is going. And it's a night of Christian music with the greatest big band ever and the symphony in every city where they go. And a 200-voice choir. And every night on his 30-city tour, he's going to say, this is my legacy tour. I'm 86 years old, I'm just about done. These songs, God gave them to me. I gave back to you. That's my legacy. Then he's going to ask the cogent question, because I asked him to. I said, Ralph, why don't you ask them if they have a legacy? He said, I will. Do you have a legacy? He said. How many of you sing? I'm going to ask you the same question. How many of you sing? Come on. All right, thank you very much. How many play an instrument? I'm suckering you in right now. Ralph Carmichael is going to ask that question. And then he's going to say, how many of you are still breathing? Get off your tail and do something. I have a friend named John who's putting a 3,000-person army together of musicians from all over the world. I want you to go to the back and sign up for it. He's doing that. Sandy Patty is doing that on her current tour. So is Dino Karstanakis. So is Larnell Harris. So is Wayne Watson. And all of those people that I've known for 40 years, I finally figured it out. I would get them all together and share the vision. And they've all said, if you can do that, that'll be the greatest thing that's ever happened. Now, let me tell you, it's not all going to be in Visalia. We're starting chapters in Dallas and Chicago and Miami and Tulsa and places like this. There will be Celebrant reprise teams. Reprise means sing it again. And if you can give 3 weeks of your life, 3 weeks of your life to go to the mission field, and you have a skill. I had a 75-year-old trombone player from Texas that went with us to Mexico. He said, I've done Habitat for Humanity several times, but I'm not very good with a hammer. But I'm a professional trombone player. I've been a music educator all my life. You telling me you got a place for me? You betcha. My church doesn't want me anymore. They said I'm too old. Oh. Somebody told Dave Donald that, or he knows. He said, I can really use my primary gift on the mission field. I said, yeah, you sure can. And he went with us to Mexico. When he came back, he said, I played my horn every day. I went out and I prayed with people. And he shook my hand so vigorously, I thought my arm was going to fall off. He said, thank you so much. He went back home to Texas, told all of his friends, and 4 of them called us and said, can we go? That's what the future is for Celebrants. We're going to get to that 3,000 workers every single year on the mission field, or we're going to die trying. Amen. But at least we're going to try. And I would love to have the support and the prayers of this community, because I love this community. And we try to represent you in the valley as best we can wherever we go. Those 98 countries, some of the beginnings were amazing. Mother Teresa's Nobel Peace Prize, we sang for that. 4 private audience for Pope John Paul II. But you know the new guy, Francis? The last concert we did in Argentina, he sponsored when he was a bishop. Before he was a cardinal, even. Now he's the Pope. I think we're going back to Rome. That's not bad. It's not bad. I want to thank you, sincerely, honestly. This is our home. This is where we operate. This is where we have a 7-story office with a gold elevator. What are you laughing about? You've seen our place, have you? Oh man, we're on the, I don't know what side of the tracks we're on. Right side, wrong side, but we're by the tracks. And that's where we are. It's a working office. It's not a show place. We work in there. In fact, don't dare walk in the door. They'll give you something to do. We're here. We're planning to be here for the duration. I would like to ask you humbly, with all of my heart, we are not a church. People don't gather every Sunday and if they tithe, give their tithe to Celebrant singers. They don't do that. They give it to their local church. We're not building any big buildings yet. We may need a training center one of these days, but we'll do it if it facilitates something, not before. Our buses are 1984s. That just soaked in to the woman in the front row. She said, that's older than I am. And we're good stewards. We don't waste things. We're really good stewards. I talked to a gentleman in Evansville, Indiana, about 2 weekends ago. We were in Evansville, Indiana, in the cathedral, right downtown. It's a beautiful building, 100-year-old building. And this fellow has a PhD in music. He's got a great choir, and he's in charge of the whole diocesan program for the Catholic Church there in Evansville. And we were talking about things, and he said, that's a pretty good-looking bus out there. I said, yeah, it is. And he said, what year is it? I said, 1984. He about fell over. And I said, however, it runs really great, and we'll be able to keep it for 2 more years, and then California's going to say you got to take it off the road. So that's going to happen. But we had this discussion.